Hello everyone and welcome back on my channel. Today we are having a special episode for Jurassic World Evolution 3 and today we are going to build a high security habitat for the T-Rex. So let's get started. Last week I saw an event going on the Jurassic World Evolution 3 Discord server, and it was about building a habitat or a facility that is supposed to be like high security habitat and stuff like that. So I did want to participate at the beginning, but I simply did not have the time for it because I only saw 2 days before the event was ending and I had absolutely no time for building something, especially since this is a little bit more difficult than my usual habitats, I would say. This is the very first time I've ever built something like high security. So I did take some more time than usual for building this one, even though it did at the end take less than I originally thought. But since I could not participate in the event, but it did sound quite interesting building something like that, I still wanted to create something, even if it was not for the event, but only to show it to you guys here on YouTube. And I feel like this is also something very interesting for you guys. I also have not really seen this a lot on YouTube in general, and I feel like this is especially something much different than I usually build, and the T-Rex would have been not in the next couple of episodes, even maybe in one of the zoos, I'm not quite sure. At the current zoo that I'm building, the Jurassic Zoological Garden, the T-Rex would definitely not fit, as this is an apex predator and I do not want to have such big carnivores in the zoo, as it doesn't really fit the style. And for the next project I'm currently already planning for is the Tyrannosaurus Rex, not technically on my list. I'm not quite sure if I would build for it, as the project is not entirely planned yet. But I feel like just building something for it in here is quite nice. And I did see that in the event a lot of people were building for like the Indoraptor and the Velociraptor and stuff like that. So I felt like maybe doing something different, and for a much larger carnivore like the T-Rex it would be really nice. So I really quickly decided that I wanted to build for the T-Rex, and I somehow came up with the idea of having this like circular habitat that is like entirely made out of concrete with a little bit of like high voltage fencing at the very top, just to be like extra secure. And I kind of wanted to create that. I'm not sure if this circular building would be really realistic in real life, but honestly I don't really care that much for this project. And I feel like this did come out quite well, and I really enjoyed building this, and I feel like it did came out quite well, sort of like I anticipated, though I do think that I can build a little bit more around the whole habitat, like these areas in between. But I feel like just having this habitat for now is quite nice. Also, if you finish this video, please let me know at the very end if you want to see more of these videos, like in high security. Maybe I'm gonna do this whole project into a whole park with a handful of high security habitats and not only the T-Rex. So definitely let me know if you are interested in that, and if I should make this a whole like park facility, and also what species you would like to see in the next habitats. And surely it does have to fit the high security theme then. So now let's talk about how I built this habitat. So in the very beginning, as I said, I wanted to have this like concrete walled habitat, and since I wanted to have a round habitat, I firstly kind of built one wall segment and connected it to this round piece that is on the grid. Honestly, you can use whatever gridded piece you like, it doesn't really matter. It's only needed so that you can place the other side, or basically you're gonna copy those pieces within the group and then turn it by 180 degrees, so it will be on the other side, and then you can turn the whole thing also on the grid. This is why we have this one gridded piece in the middle. So then you turn everything by 15 degrees each. So now you will almost have the circle, so you can basically already see it. This is only so that it takes a little bit less time to make the circle full, as this is especially a very large one. So after that you can select all of the pieces that are like in between the 15 degrees circle, I would say, and then you can turn it bit by bit until the circle is full. I don't know if this explanation is like enough. If you want to have a more in-depth tutorial on how to build circular habitats or other things, basically you can build like this everything that needs to be circular, and this is also really nice. All the people that have been building Planet Zoo probably know the mud pillar technique. This is basically the same. You just need to have one piece in the middle that is on the grid. It doesn't have to be round. You can also use like a regular wall. It's just so that you stay on the grid and everything is perfectly in line. So that's why this is for. And after I have completed the full circle, I use the hatchery. I really wanted to have like an area that is like a really small area secured, where the dinosaur that is inside this habitat can be like transported in and out. It can be lured in there somehow with like food, for example, so that they can probably catch it or do maintenance in the habitat itself, or maybe there's medical reasons why they need to get the dinosaur. So I want to have almost like a holding pen, but I think this really small one is quite enough. I don't think that a dinosaur like that or an animal like that would ever be like transported in and out of like a holding pen or backstage area like every day or something like that. So I think this is only for like really necessary things. And since I thought that the hatchery does have quite a nice look and it already has this little small area, I thought, why make my life harder than I have to and build something on my own if I can just connect it with the hatchery. So that's why I did that, and kind of tweaked it as I was taking out the actual hatchery module inside, as this was like really lush and jungle vibe and it didn't really fit what I was anticipating it for. So I did remove that and then placed the door in the front, basically copied the one that is in the back and just moved it to the front and made everything fit. And this is supposed to be only for the dinosaurs, so I also had to have an entrance where the staff, the rangers and stuff like that can go in and out of the habitat if needed. And so I did take the actual habitat door that we have, as I feel like this is quite enough. And again, I don't need to make my life harder than I have to and build everything on my own, especially in this project, I say. I did use quite a bit of the actual like building pieces that we have and like the facilities that we have in this game, as I feel like they are quite detailed, they look quite good, and just with a little bit of tweaking here and there you can make them fit really well into your project. So what I did, I wanted to have it like a double door, just in case. Again, this is a high security area, so I tried to think of as many security things that there are. So I thought a double door just makes sense. And of course, the rest of it needs to be concrete lined again, besides the actual doors where the staff can go in and out. And after that, I also wanted to have a different fence just to give it an extra layer of security. So I actually saw also a picture that I took as inspiration, and there was also a little smaller fence, more easier fence, even around the like big high security wall that we have. And I thought this would fit quite well, so there would be like no option for any sort of intruders or something to get in there. So we have as many security layers as we can have for this one. And I also thought that there should be like some sort of viewing areas that are really good for the staff to keep track of the dinosaur. And I thought to make a tower where they can like look over the habitat barrier. And At some point I did remember that we have these like viewing towers, like habitat items, so where the guests regularly can go up and see the dinosaurs. I think a lot of people actually use them when they're building for sauropods, as they are so big and so high, so that you can be almost at eye level with those dinosaurs. But I feel like for this purpose and having it like a security tower, or I'm not quite sure how you would call it, this fits also quite well. And again, I don't need to build everything on my own, so I try to find one of the different styles that we have that is almost as fitting as possible. And this had a lot of like concrete elements in there, so I did use this style generally for this project or for this habitat, as this is only a high security facility and not an actual zoo. It doesn't really need to be visitor friendly, so it does need to be functional and as sturdy as possible. So I feel like concrete would be the perfect choice, as this is also probably more cheap than other materials, and we don't have to go overboard with like the money that we spend on the stuff if this is not a facility where guests are coming in and out and leaving their money there. So I think something a little bit more simpler and easier and not that high value does definitely fit a little bit more. So I did take out all of the wooden pieces and all of the stone pieces that we have and gradually replace them with concrete pieces. This way it was also quite simple for me to keep like the general shape of the building and not to come up with something different. Again, I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, so I slowly replaced the pieces and took like the roof off that was like tiled and replaced it with like this metal corrugated metal piece that we have, and so on and so forth. So I made this look much simpler and much more sturdy than before. And also, when I was thinking about this project or building this, I was always thinking that a high security something always kind of looks or feel like a prison. At least I was always thinking about a prison at some point, and I don't want to like impersonate the dinosaurs, but I think you know what I mean. Like, prisons are also high security, so nothing can get out of there and also not in there. So I try to think about that at some sort, but I did make sure to make the habitat itself, so the inside, as animal friendly or dinosaur friendly as possible, so it is still a like somewhat nice area for the dinosaur to live in. But again, this is like high security, so it is not made to be like the prettiest thing ever or like a fantastic zoo habitat. This is still like only a holding facility. So basically the whole idea for this project is that there are dinosaurs in the current time, similar to like Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, but we are not living with them, or we are not keeping them in zoos like normal animals, but we are actually treating them like dangerous animals, dangerous dinosaurs that are walking around. So especially the most dangerous ones are held somewhere not accessible for everyone, and where they are kept as high security as possible, so they cannot get out and there will be no chance of them of like destroying something or having like a catastrophe similar to like Jurassic Park 3, I think it was, when the T-Rex was walking through the town and causing chaos. So basically, to not have them cause chaos everywhere, we are keeping them in a special facility where they can be kept safe and sound, so that the animals or the dinosaurs themselves are safe, but also like the general public is also safe of dinosaurs. So this whole facility, park or area, or however you want to call it, is like kept somewhere quite far away from the general public, where there's not like a town very close by or something. So this is only for like the staff that's working there, to keep them safe, as we are still treating them like animals and we are not like just killing them. So we are keeping them safe somewhere where they cannot hurt anyone. if I continue this, or if you guys want me to continue this project, this would be like generally the whole like history of this area or the idea of this park. I most of the time do like to have like a little bit of backstory for the projects that I have, so that way they do feel a bit more alive and a little bit more soul, and they make a little bit more sense also maybe. So let me know if you like this idea, and like that I can also continue with this park and keep some more dangerous species, and maybe even very large sauropods, as I feel like in a regular zoo style the very big ones quite don't really fit in there. At least this is my feeling. So maybe this would also be an idea to have big sauropods in there. And they are technically not the most dangerous ones, as they are still herbivores, but they are quite large and they could do quite some damage, and they are not really easy to contain as, for example, a very small dinosaur. So maybe this would also make sense to keep them in this area, and then I could also build something like really crazy fancy for like big sauropods, as I fear that I otherwise would not be able to build anything for them, at least not in the current projects that I'm thinking of or actually building for. So for the high security tower or this viewing point, I at the very end placed down some more decals. I just finished off all those little areas in between and the little gaps and finished off everything. As you have seen, I did copy paste a lot of these things or just replace them, and so that everything fits, I just continued it. And then at the end I placed this very close to the like concrete wall of the barrier, but I did place the fencing in front of this building at the very beginning, but then I later changed it and actually removed the fence first, moved it a little bit closer, and made it so that this tower is also like accessible on the downstairs area, and through this building you could also access the area in between the fencing and the concrete wall, so in case there would be any maintenance, or just to cut down trees so that they don't block the view from the towers and from the security cameras inside the habitat. So there should be some option for the staff to actually get in this area in between those two barriers. So I feel like this is also quite good idea to actually have this as like a walkthrough in between these, and then also being the security tower. And then I just connected it to the pathing. I will still later adjust the pathing just a little bit. I am actually doing some smaller details off camera, as I feel like this episode would have been gotten a little bit too long, and also I feel like some little details are not necessarily important to be placed inside the speed build, but they are still like filling in these little gaps and giving it this last bit of realism. So you will see some stuff in the cinematic shots or like a jump during the speed build part, and there will be some small details, but I made sure to have like the most important things or the most detailed things inside this video actually. And I also use these little maintenance towers where the staff will like drive through. I wanted to have them so that the staff will actually drive around the park and do maintenance on the staff, or like technically I wanted to have it a little bit more realistic with the staff walking and driving around there. So I placed those down. And I of course also use the security cameras to not only have the viewing towers where there would be actual staff inside or at the very top of there and looking at the dinosaur, as I think that these would not be like used 24/7. So I feel like having the security cameras there also would be quite nice, so that the staff does not always need to sit inside those towers, and they can also see the dinosaur moving around there like at the night, with maybe like a night vision function in the security cameras, and they can be like inside some sort of building and actually also look or see what the dinosaur is doing in there. And now finally building the actual habitat inside for the T-Rex. I was a little bit unsure on how to do this. I have like quite often already said that I do struggle a bit with really big habitats, and this is a quite large habitat because we do have a large dinosaur, and since this is living in there 24/7 and we don't really have a zoo, I feel like that this habitat could also potentially be a little bit bigger than I would have done it in a like regular city zoo. So I was quite struggling in the beginning on how to build this, but I feel like in the end it did come out quite well. So what I wanted to do is that the or most of the staff buildings that are connected to the actual habitat are relatively clustered on one side. So I wanted to have the other side of the habitat then lined a little bit with the rocks, and they do look a little bit weird at the moment. At this stage it is kind of a trust the process. I want to have it look a little bit more realistic and also maybe a little bit more nicer for the dinosaur, so it doesn't feel like it's living in a concrete bowl. So I did line the back of it a little bit with the rocks, and then randomly place down a few big rocks to kind of give it like some sort of structure inside. And then I also decided to make the terrain a little bit more uneven, as I feel like very straight terrain can look quite bad as it looks too artificial. So I wanted to at least have a little bit of height variation, but I didn't want to go too crazy with it. Again, this is not a zoo habitat. It does not win like a beauty prize on any sort, but it does need to be livable and like a proper housing for the T-Rex. But on the other side, I still wanted to make sure that everything is viewable for the staff, so that the dinosaur cannot like hide somewhere where they can't find it. Like for example in Jurassic World, where the Indominus is hiding inside the habitat and they cannot find it. Sure, they do have some more struggles as they cannot track it on like the heat map camera and stuff like that. But to have like the idea that everything is viewable for the staff, I always had to remember that, so that the T-Rex does not have too many hiding spots where it can actually hide away. Surely it does want to have a little bit of hiding area so it can still feel safe. We still want the T-Rex to have like a proper housing where it feels safe and where it also is appropriate to their needs. So we don't want to abandon the needs of the dinosaur completely. So I kind of wanted to go like somewhere in the middle of it, and I feel like in the end it does look quite well. There is like a few spots where the dinosaur can like lay down behind the trees or behind the rocks, where it can feel a little bit more safer, but generally this habitat is quite open. And to also achieve this look, I use a little bit of the foliage brushes, because placing everything by hand would have been a little bit too much. And I wanted to go with more of like a pine tree forest vibe. So I use this brush and mostly on the backside of the habitat place down the trees and brushes. And in the front, I barely use it, so there's only like a handful of trees, so the area is not like completely open but still completely visible. And then I also use my little stone clusters in between everywhere. I mostly use them around the big rocks, but I also wanted to use it a lot like in between, so we have a little bit something to look at in the whole area, and so it doesn't look too plain. And I feel like after the rocks are all placed down and I have the foliage brush with the big trees, I feel like it already gave the habitat a lot of structure. So from there on I could place down singular pieces actually by hand and define everything and do all the little details. So since this is sort of a forest vibe, I also wanted to have a lot of broken down trees. I feel like especially since there would not be like any maintenance or gardening very often, it would also look quite rough, and they would not bother to take out all of the trees, for example, that are like fallen down or potentially even damaged by the T-Rex itself. So there would be a bunch of these laying around, and I always feel like that broken down trees give the habitats a little something. I definitely love to use them, and everyone that's still looking for some sort of advice, definitely use more of those fallen logs if it makes sense for the habitat, of course, but if they do, definitely use a lot more than you probably think you need. And after I've placed down the fallen logs, I feel like the habitat almost was ready. I only made sure to place down a handful more of singular foliage pieces to just give the last bit of detail. So especially around the fallen logs, I always see them sort of like little islands where I can place down rocks and plants and shrubs and everything. So I always think of like little areas that are almost like islands that are really clustered, and in between there's a lot of free space. Especially with large animals or dinosaurs, you will need a lot of actual open space for them so they can actually walk around there. And I just made sure to place a few little pieces here and there so it doesn't look too empty. And also in the very end, I used once again one of the brushes. It is like the arid grasslands brush or something it's called. And this, or generally these brushes, give quite a nice grass texture. I really like that, as we do not have like a proper grass piece that I can place down. I do like to use the brushes if I want to have some grassy areas, because I actually do really like them. And I believe this brush also sometimes gives you some logs or some tree stumps, so that is also really nice. And some of the brushes, I'm not quite sure which one of them, also make like little pebbles. I do really like that. I love to use like rock piles in Planet Zoo, and here we do have quite large pieces, so I can't really do these really tiny pebbles that I would love to, but sometimes with the foliage brushes it does work out quite well, so I can still have some of those, as these give off a lot of texture and structure to the habitat as well. And the last larger thing I added was again a little bit more of a security area in front of the actual double door where they can enter the habitat, just to make it again extra secure, so there will not be any intruders trying to get inside of the habitat for whatever reason. And this was almost it for today's speed build episode, so let's head over to the cinematic shots. And this is the finished result of the high security Tyrannosaurus habitat. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and definitely leave a like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe so you're not missing out on any more Jurassic World Evolution 3 content. Also, let me know down in the comments what you think about this habitat, and if I should continue with this project and also start building a couple more habitats that are in this high security theme. I leave you alone now with the last cinematic shots of this habitat, so you can see the finished result with the T-Rex wandering around its habitat. I hope to see you in the next episode. Until then, bye guys!